There are some games that give you worlds to explore, and there are some games that give you the tools to build those worlds. Today, we're going to talk about how Savage Worlds does both of those things. Let's go. Welcome back to the Sacred Art of Gaming. Today, we're talking about one of my favorites, the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. It's been a long time coming. We love talking about tabletop games, and I'll be honest with you, this is probably the one that got me to fall in love with tabletop role-playing games. So if I'm ever biased, let me know. But yeah, we're gonna review this bad boy, and I've got a lot to say, and I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet. As you can see, I have all the tabs in the world. As you can see, the build of the book is great. It's a good size. I love it. Here's the back of the book that I never dive into initially, so maybe I will now. This is from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. So this takes you anywhere you want to go, from the weird Wild West of Deadlands to the crime-ridden streets of Necessary Evil, from the curious camps of East Texas University to the distant, untamed worlds of the Last Parsec. Their whole thing is fast, furious fun, and for the most part, I believe that they do deliver. So I want to cover up something that I wrote in here, but I did want to show you this opening part here, because I love when they do something with the book, and this gives you a vibe for what to expect with this book, and I think they nail it. All right, table of contents. I always feel like the table of contents is one of the most important places within a book because it gives you an idea as to what is in the book, obviously, but also like how much weight they're putting towards each thing, and then also the order in which they put it, which I think is important. This game, I think, spoiled me for other games in the future. But yeah, let's get right into it. We're not going to cover every single page. This kind of breaks down like some of the basic stuff that you should do and the basics of the game. We're actually just going to skip all that. Here's some default races that you can have. You can make races, which is handy. There are a list of hindrances, and we'll kind of discuss that in a moment, as well as edges. And you know what? Let's just go right to the list. There's multiple lists within Savage Worlds that also spoiled me for every other game. So there's these 3 pages that I feel like are very important. Character creation summary, also good. Hindrance summaries, trait summaries, and edge summaries. So I'm going to bring you to those as we kind of discuss the basics of the game. I feel like this is a good place to chill. Oh, sticky pages, don't love that. I'm guessing because the tab. With Savage Worlds, there's a few things that I think are worth mentioning for sure. Number 1, you're going to be rolling 2d6 as a wild card. What is a wild card? Well, my sweet, sweet cherub, a wild card is someone who is important to the story, which means you get to roll your trait die, which I say 2d6, that's not entirely true. It could be a d4, d6, d8, d10, d12, and in addition to that, you get a wild die. And that means that you're important. You got a little bit of plot armor because the vibes for this game is meant to be kind of pulpy, kind of cinematic, but there are tactical bits to it, and I love that. I'll just go ahead and say it right here and right now. My favorite things in life, really, are easy to learn and difficult to master. That's weird to say about tabletop role-playing games, but I think it applies to this game. And I say that because to get going, very easy. But there's a lot of cool tactics and optional rules that you can dive into if you'd like to. So anyways, back to the dice resolution system. Here's a D8 and a D6. Now let's say you have a D8 as your trait die and the D6 as your wild die. Your target number is always 4. I love games that do this. Whenever you're pretty much always looking for the North Star, which is 4 in this game, in most circumstances. You'd roll your dice, boom, we got a 6 and a 5, so that is a success. But this game has exploding dice. So that is the 6, if you did not know. So let's say I rolled 2 6s, a 6 on my D8 and a 6 on this guy. And I rolled again and I rolled another 6. And then I rolled again and then I rolled another 6. I'm not trying to show off my special dice here, but that's what's happening. And let's say this last one is a 1. So I have 2 paths. I have 6, 12, 18, 17, or 6. I obviously want to go with the higher number. The higher number is going to be better. Let's say in another scenario, just to really drive this home, let's say I rolled an 8 and I rolled another 8 and then I rolled a 3. So now that is 16, 19, or 6, 12, 18. Let's make this less complicated. 8, 16, 18, or 6, 12, 18, 19. So this path would be higher than this path. I think that's easy math. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments down below. Is that too much? I'm finding now that roll under systems are pretty easy, but whatever. So this gives you levels of success. So you might wonder, well, what is the point of getting over a 4? Well, every 4 over your target, which is usually 4, 8, 12, there's a success with a raise. And sometimes a success with multiple raises means a whole lot. Sometimes by default it doesn't, but in my humble opinion, your GM should find a way to make that feel special. At least that's what I like to do. All right, so that is that system. The other thing I think is worth mentioning is the initiative, which is based on cards. You roll them every single round, and you know, the higher the number, the earlier you get to go. So like the person who has an 8 would go before the 3, but here we also have another 8. That's complicated. SHDC, which is going to be your spades, hearts, diamonds, clubs. So diamonds would go before clubs here. So this character would go, and then this one and this one. And this changes every round. When you roll a joker, or when you pull a joker, I should say, they get a +2 to attack and damage for that round. And they get to go whenever they want. Usually first, but not always. Rolls that round, not just attack and damage. And then after that, the deck gets shuffled. So it kind of adds like an interesting meta game within the game for like your initiative. All right, so character creation. Every character is going to have, of course, a concept. You pick your race, and then you can pick hindrances, and those hindrances can give you points to put into more edges. I don't know anyone who doesn't take that gamble, but yeah, it makes your character fun. It could be something like maybe their eyesight isn't good, maybe they're clumsy, maybe they are very greedy, like stuff like that. And that gives you stuff to role play. There are some portions of it that are mechanical. They may give you like a -2 to certain rolls. You have your attributes, which are going to be detailed here. Agility, smart, spirit, strength, and vigor. For the most part, you're not rolling those. For the most part, you're rolling these skills. I'm trying so hard not to dive into every aspect of Savage Worlds, but yeah, these skills are tied to attributes, and then you can bump them up in a dice chain. So D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. What's interesting about that is it's not necessarily guaranteeing you to succeed all the time, because you could roll a 2 on a D12. And I think I enjoy that. In my younger days, I was like, oh, the consistency. I would rather have a +1 or a +2. But I think for the fun of the game, I think that the dice chains are pretty solid. So yeah, those are your attributes and skills, which we mentioned. You get derived statistics like parry, toughness, and pace. Parry being the thing that usually breaks you, well, I guess parry and toughness. Those two things are going to break you out of the 4 target number the most. You would basically take your parry is going to be based on your fighting, your toughness is going to be based on your vigor. In addition to that, you're going to add armor. Those are going to change. So like here we have an example for toughness. The toughness is 11. So 11 is your target number for that. And then 2 of that is armor. That's stated like this because if you have something that's armor piercing, it can ignore that too, and that would make their toughness 9. And that's where like some of the fiddly bits of Savage Worlds like really comes out, and I love it. Edges are going to be like your feats. That's what's going to make your character really stand out. And then you have your gear. So here's the list for hindrance summaries, which I love this. I wish more games could do this. Same thing for traits and edges. So this way you can just come to these lists and figure out very quickly, what the fuck is this? What are the requirements? What is the summary? Like alertness, do I really need to write down a big like description for alertness? Not really. +2 to notice rolls, done. Is that sexy? Not really. Charismatic, free reroll when using persuasion. It's okay. I guess that might be a gripe that some people have, is that not all of these are sexy. But Berserk, that one's pretty neat. All right, and this goes through all the different combat edges, leadership edges, social edges, weird edges, etc. Now, you're noticing something that I may have glossed over. This is not a class system, usually. It's an open system where you can build your character however you want. This is a list of common gear, and this stuff, for the most part, are the things that you would expect. Something I do want to mention that is a little different is with the armor. You'll notice that this actually took me a little bit to wrap my head around when I first started playing Savage Worlds. So there's the jacket here that covers the torso and the arms. And then there's also leggings that cover the legs. Then there's a cap that covers the head. This being, that's medieval, ancient? Okay, sure. Heavy winter clothing, okay. So that all adds a +1. That +1 does not stack. That was something that was kind of lost on me at the time. So you, almost like Fallout style, the video game, and the TTRPG, your jacket and or your torso and arms have a +1 here and a +1 here. Your leggings have a +1 as well. So those are all similar, but let's say it was something like thick leather. So maybe the thick leather leggings had a +2. So when someone's targeting body parts, they would want to avoid the legs. They're actually better off hitting the torso because there's less armor there, but it may be harder to hit the legs, smaller target. So yeah, just a little something there, and that's going to be added to your toughness like we mentioned already. Now, shields, they are going to be added to your parry, which I think that's a solid system. I like that a lot. Your damage on your weapons, you start to get a feel for them as you play the game more. Hopefully there's not a ton of glare right now. But they have strength requirements on the weapons, and melee weapons are generally going to be strength plus the strength requirement usually. So like the battle axe is a strength plus a D8. If your strength is a D4, you know, maybe not as great. But if you're a super strong boy, D12, you might be putting up some damage. But there's a strength requirement. So yeah, you wouldn't be able to do it with a D4. Not effectively, anyways. And a lot of these have like additional notes. Your range weapons, they generally are going to be like 2d6, 2d8, etc. There's different ranges. You get minuses with additional, depending on how far away they are. And I think you'll notice this is covering like modern, ancient, etc. special weapons, futuristic weapons, because this game is a toolkit for anything really. And you might be, there's vehicles as well. We don't want to go through every single one of those things. Let's get into the rules. The rules, we pretty much covered most things, except for bennies. Bennies are similar to Inspiration from that game that we don't like to talk about. It's not just limited to the same things though. You can actually make changes to damage. You can do a reroll similar to like what you would expect from the game we do not name. You can change the story, which is a powerful move that isn't utilized a lot. So yeah, bennies are really cool, and you start with them. You start with them, and you also get more from the GM when you do fun things. There's almost like a benny economy, which is almost like a skill in of itself. This game, I'm not going to go over every single rule because we've already gone over quite a bit. But something that I do want to mention, and I think there may be a table for this as well. There is no table. that goes through all these things. But all of these rules here are optional. You don't have to go through every single one of these. But you'll notice a lot of cool and interesting options like recoil on weapons, mounted combat, multi-actions, how illuminated the area is. Now this is going to add penalties to that 4 target number. So that's where you have the interesting levers within the game to make things more easy or difficult. So let's say they're really far away, or maybe it's really foggy and it's hard to see them. You now have a -2 to your roll. Notice that cleverly keeps the number 4 in play by just subtracting. But if it helps you, you could say, oh, it's a 6 now instead of a 4. But you get the idea. Adventure Toolkit. This is one of my favorite parts of Savage Worlds. I'm not going to dive into every single piece here, but look at all of these cool options for chases, dramatic tasks like disarming a bomb, dealing with hazards and fear, interludes, maybe you're by the campfire telling some stories and some character building, networking, the sleuth on the streets who's talking to all the different people with the montage, trying to get information, quick encounters, if you ever want to settle something like fairly quickly, you don't want to you want it to happen, but you don't want to make it last like 3 hours whenever you're just fighting a few goblins. Social conflicts, travel, social conflicts, a good thing being like a court case or something. A lot of cool stuff there. Our next section, I guess I could use the tabs, that I put in place. And here's our, man, there's so much to talk about in this game. So much that I want to talk about that I love. There are setting rules that there's, again, another list, and these setting rules is another way for you to take your game and customize it to how you want it to feel. Creative combat being one of my favorite ones. When you get a raise on a test, which a test is kind of like oppose rolls, we'll say. It's like oppose rolls, and if you get a raise on that, you can do some additional, that actually might be worth bringing up. Creative combat, let's say 12. You rolled on the 2d6 table, you got your raise. After the hero resolves this turn, she immediately gets an entire additional turn. This includes movement as well. She may use the turn to go on hold if she wishes. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff like that. You want it to be more gritty damage. You want people to heal fast, maybe some like Conan the Barbarian type stuff. There you go. Skill specialization. If those are too general, you can really get into the specifics if you'd like. Powers, man. Oh God, I love. I think the fear table must have been updated at some point. So by default, there's psionics, there's like superpowers, weird science, magic, and miracles. There's some cool stuff in here, but to give you just one example of how awesome this is, Blast, which is a seasoned ranked spell, power, we'll say. There's some trappings, so you get to change the trappings of this however you want. I love this. It spoiled me for D&D because I could not understand, like, why am I forced into Fireball if I want the best thing? What if I want Ice Ball, Snowball? You get my point. It lets you know the range, lets you know how many power points, so it's like a mana pool that it costs, but you can spend more power points, mana, and you can make it into a small blast template for no extra cost or a large blast template for +1. That changes the size. So maybe you want to be more tactical, make it smaller because it's a medium by default. And also you can make it cause additional damage. So that one being a pretty straightforward one because it's damage focus, but maybe something that is a little bit more unique, like Burrow. This power may affect more than one target for additional power point each. So now you're making multiple people burrow with you, and you can flavor that however you want. Are you like Shadowcat and you're like, you know, just dissolving into the ground, or are you straight up just digging, but like very efficiently, like an earthbender? And then there's also power. The caster can burrow through stone, concrete, or similar substances. So now you're like boosting it up. Oh, I love Ars Magica magic. I love Dungeon Crawl Classics magic, and I love Savage Worlds magic for that reason. And again, the summaries. You can see this is not a huge list of powers. This is actually a very reasonable list, but you can modify these to be what you want. And there are some more like general modifiers too that you can apply to anything. So then we have a bestiary. Cool art, by the way. I didn't really talk about the art, but cool art. There's a size table. As you can see, this this book has been through some stuff. Their monster stat blocks are solid. I think they're better than D&D, but I do prefer some stat blocks from some other games that are a little tighter, but it's solid. There's some things that bother me here, like bite claws where it says strength plus D8. Can you just tell me like strength and then put their strength here? So their strength is D12 plus 6. Can we just maybe do both? I can understand that maybe their strength could be modified by something, but just put it here so I'm not looking in so many places, because I'm doing a lot as a GM. So that's that. And then there's also a section on game mastering. Because this covers so many different genres, it does try to cover the gambit of things. This GM section, it's solid. I'm not going to compare this to like Runehammer or anything like that, but it's pretty solid. You know how we mentioned many times that there's a lot of things in the game that are like simple but can apply to many things? That is a theme that is throughout the game. Distracted and vulnerable is like a superpower level of simplicity being applied to so many things. Really, all these two statuses are, which are probably the main statuses in the game, is going to be that there is a -2 to someone's roll. So like maybe you affected them in some way, so now they are rolling with like a disadvantage, so to speak, -2. Or you now have an advantage against them because you made them vulnerable. You have a +2. And those two things being applied to many situations is super powerful. Okay, I know we covered a lot. There's the blast templates. There's a couple things that I didn't touch on that I think are worth mentioning. Number one, the layout. The layout is really good. I like the layout a lot. It's kind of hard to see because my silly tabs, but it also has the color coding on the side of the book, which I love. The book is 206, which I feel like is very reasonable. The size of the book is very reasonable. So yeah, that is all excellent. Character building, I feel like is relatively easy. And shaken. Shaken is the thing that I didn't speak to that I want to speak to, because I'm conflicted on it. It's like my only gripe with the game. And I didn't really have an issue with it. We're using issue loosely here, but it bothers me more in solo play than it does in group play. And the reason why I say that is because, well, let's start from the beginning, shall we? We mentioned you're trying to hit someone. Let's say you're trying to hit them in melee combat, so you have to beat their parry. Let's say you beat their parry. You're like, yes, I completed one check. Now I then have to roll damage, which then has to hit another check, which is toughness. And sometimes that toughness and parry can be pretty high. It's worth mentioning that dodge is a target number of 4, so ranged combatants have a kind of an advantage in that way, but you can take cover too, which adds minuses and stuff. Area of effects are another tactical way to get around that whole parry thing, which again will be 4, and sometimes cover doesn't apply to that. Anyways, it's where all the cool tactical choices come in. So let's say you beat their parry, you beat their toughness, and you're like, yes, they're a real bitch, and I managed to hit them. And all I did was shake them. You shake them, they then make a spirit roll to get out of shaken. And they get out of shaken, and then nothing really happened to them. And maybe it was hard to shake them. Maybe their toughness is like a 12. That is kind of annoying. The reason why I say that, and the reason why I said the thing about GM group play being a little different, is because the GM should be using their bennies to be more offensive instead of defensive. So re-rolls trying to hurt the PCs instead of healing themselves by getting rid of shaken or soaking to get rid of wounds. Man, there's a lot in this game, I'm realizing. I'm trying not to cover every bit of it, but we can if needed. But a lot of that stuff is technically optional. Let's say in the GM's case, the GM is trying not to be defensive with their bennies, and then those bennies just go into a pool. When I solo play Savage Worlds, a lot of times I have the players and the GM, or the enemies, feed their bennies into each other. I'm controlling both the enemies and the players. I have to beat the parry, then I have to beat the toughness, and then after all that, they just make a spirit roll and then the shaken goes away. Because you have to shake them before you can wound them. They take 3 wounds if they're a wild card. It can like last forever, which is why my Deadlands Dark Ages solo play, I kind of cut it short in that last battle because that wild card fight was delaying the inevitable. That leads to 2 other things I want to mention. Not every enemy is a wild card, so when they're not wild cards and they're extras, they're kind of like mooks or minions in other games. You kill them pretty easily. You shake them and you wound them and they're done. That's not too bad. The wild cards, they should not be often. It should be a rare occurrence that you're fighting an enemy wild card. But I kind of ended up resolving that end epic combat with like a quick encounter almost after rounds of combat where I'm like, it's inevitable what's happening. It's just taking longer than it should. And that doesn't feel great. Even though I think that was the right call, it can almost be like anticlimactic. The other thing that's worth mentioning in Savage Worlds is there's like a death spiral. So when you start to get wounds, that imposes negatives on your rolls. So for every wound, you have a minus, assuming you don't have an edge or something for it. I started this video by stating that you can build your world or you can use worlds that are provided. So far, based on what I've shown you, it seems like you can just build a world, right? Based on the races that you can build and the setting rules and all that stuff. What's a cool picture we can leave this on while we talk about this? Here's the breakdown on Shaken while we discuss. The worlds. We have some of the most prolific worlds being Deadlands, if you can see it. Deadlands being like Weird West, amazing, love it. Rifts, also love it. Basically, imagine like you're a little kid and you want to play with like robots and dinosaurs and vampires and aliens all in the same place. Rifts opens portals to allow you to do that. And then of course, Pathfinder. So you've got some big names that they cover. You also have, I don't know if I can say like specific to Savage Worlds, but some of these are specific Savage Worlds, some are not. Like Lankmar, which is also kind of big. The Last Parsec, sci-fi setting, really cool. East Texas University, which I've spoken about ad nauseum at this point, being your like horror mystery type stuff, but you're in college. And then also other stuff like Weird Wars 1, 2, being like World War 1 and 2. And then also Rome is another one. But wait, there's more! Because if you want more Toolkit and less like world that's supplied for you, you have companions, like the Superpower Companion, which adds more of those cool power options, and then also things like the Fantasy Companion, which adds more of your traditional class type stuff that you might expect in a fantasy game. Whew, boy. I love Savage Worlds. I do recommend Savage Worlds. Is Savage Worlds the game that I would recommend for like a universal system? Is that like the game? It's hard for me to say. If it wasn't for that damn... If I could somehow simplify the whole parry, toughness, shaken, wound system, I think I prefer something a little more like Easy D6, where it's just like you hit them, you take a strike, you know what I mean? Or even something like Cairn, where there's less steps to get to the same thing. It's a little lighter in that regard. Other than that, yeah, hell yeah. Excellent, excellent universal system. And it does give you really cool tactical options as well that aren't baked into your character for like abilities. It can be just like decisions that you make. Oh, they're behind cover, let's throw a grenade and do like an area effect explosion. Oh, well, man, I could probably make multiple videos on Savage Worlds. Maybe it's so hard to hit their parry. Let's gang up on them, surround them. That gives us bonuses. Maybe like there's a machine gunner who keeps shooting at us and it's hard to like not get hit. Throw down like a smoke bomb or something. That makes it harder for them to hit you. So there's just so many cool tactical choices regardless of what type of character you're playing. Things like going prone, getting on a horse, running, like there's just so many modifiers that those things create. I have gone on far too long. I do recommend Savage Worlds. I do love Savage Worlds, and there are so many things that you can do with Savage Worlds, even just out of the base book. Something that's worth mentioning, although I think this is reasonably priced for what you get. I want to say it's like 35-ish. Oh, I need to be better about this. I will put affiliate links down below. So if you would like to support me in other ways, financially, there's that. There's the Buy Me a Coffee thing. And then also liking, commenting, subscribing. Those are all very helpful and completely free. But I did want to mention one last thing. There's the Savage Worlds Deluxe Edition, which is also amazing. A little smaller, and it's softback. And this is only like $10, and you can have a lot of fun with this game as well. Savage Worlds Adventure Edition does build upon this and make a lot of things smoother, but for $10, man, it was hard. That's actually how I got into Savage Worlds to begin with. $10, pretty low commitment, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. So that has been my video on the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition and all of the possibilities that it has at its disposal. I love Savage Worlds. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Do you love Savage Worlds? Do you love another universal system? Is there a specific setting within Savage Worlds that you do love? I want to hear about it, and I'll see you in the next one as we continue to explore the sacred art of gaming together.